So yes, I'm the same guy who did the keynote yesterday. So this is a little bit of a small audience than that wider audience. Today, I just want to keep my talk a bit short, explain to you why this track exists, one. What do we do in the solution space and the vertical space? Like, what do we mean when we say industries? Are we like a end-to-end solution? We have API management. What does this mean, right? And then really set the pace so that the rest of the speakers can come and talk in depth about those specific areas, right? So I've just called this vertical thinking in a horizontal world, right? And basically it is horizontal because what you've been hearing so far and what you will hear for the rest of the day and tomorrow would be about the different tracks, right? API management, where you manage your APIs, integration, where you connect to different things, identity access management, where you look at your customers and help them authenticate and authorize and figure out who they are, and then of course the internal developer platform, which goes across the board, which solves the problem of enterprise software engineering and platform engineering. But let's forge ahead here. Okay, I'll click this way. So yes, I'm a pop culture fan, right? So yesterday I showed something from Lord of the Rings. This is from Pirates of the Caribbean. There's this scene where Jack Sparrow, if you haven't seen the movie, goes after a key, right? And they say, we didn't find the key, we found a drawing of the key. This is about abstractions, right? If you look at the software industry, if you look at software architecture, we've always tried to abstract things, even in real life, right? So if you, for example, if you traveled here today, if you're driving in Colombo, if you ordered a Pick Me or an Uber, you don't really worry about how do you get there, right? The map figures it out. You basically say, this is my source, this is my destination. You tell me based on traffic, based on the price, based on the type of car I picked, how much time it'll take for me to get there, right? But that is really abstracting the problem of how do you do GIS, geographical information systems, how do you basically use a GPS, how do you do a shortest path first, how do you do a quickest path first. There's all these algorithms that is hiding underneath. And companies like Google, who created Google Maps, and then Waze, and all these companies really abstracted that problem out so that the Ubers and the Pick-me's of the world could just use those maps, right? If not, building out that itself is a tedious process, right? So in software engineering and software architecture, abstracting to the right level is important. The internal developer platform we have is an abstraction of the software engineering problem. API management is an abstraction of how do you really handle all these APIs and how do you provide a unique interface, right? So you would have seen this slide either this time or last time, right? Where we are saying, as a company, we want to take everyone on a journey towards platformless, which means we are saying you focus on the business aspects of your organization, we will focus on the technical aspects because we've been there, we've done that, we know how to do some of the stuff. So we will help you with API management, we'll help you with integration, so on and so forth, right? So that's the platform part, right? So as you can see in this pie chart, the platform portion is smaller than the application portion, and we are saying we will take care of that platform portion. Now, how does this tie in to an industry perspective? So I shared some of these numbers yesterday. I'm not going to go through them again. Basically saying, like, we have some credibility, we've done some work. But interestingly, this comes from a number of industries, right? This pie chart basically shows banking, financial services as one of the largest industries that we have, followed by government, healthcare, so on and so forth, right? And you have so you have the larger industries, most of the customers from there, and then you have some of the smaller industries and like a long tail of industries as well. But we have customers in every industry. And what do these customers do? What do they have in common? Everyone has an API management problem, right? Everyone has an integration problem, regardless of whether you're a bank and you need to connect core banking systems, whether you are basically healthcare, whether you need to connect healthcare record systems, whether you are in retail and whether you need to basically expose APIs. These are all API management, integration, identity access management, software engineering problems, right? So from a horizontal perspective, these are the same common problems. So as WSO2, we don't really care what industry you're from because you have the same problems. We can help you with all of them. Interestingly, we also power a lot of the systems of records. That's this portion back here. We work with the second largest health record systems company in the world. So they use WSO2. So thereby, the 3,000, 4,000 customers they have use WSO2. We work with one of the top 5 core banking systems in the world, actually 2 of the top 5 core banking systems in the world. And they have, like, they power nearly 70% of the world's banks. So thereby, they are using WSO2. We power the largest education system of record in the world. And they have, I think, like 6,000 global universities using us, right, on the identity side. So we do touch these customers by being part of a system of record as well. And as a system of record, they need APIs, they need identities, and we support that. But what this slide says is that this abstraction problem applies to industries. Now, we need to take a step back and see whether there is certain things we can do in these industries to help accelerate these industries, right? So let me drive that point home a bit. Now, you have a horizontal view, which is part and parcel of all industries, right? So again, if you take a bank needs to figure out how do you expose my services as APIs. That requires an API gateway. They need to figure out how to connect to a core banking system and convert to some format. That requires an integration platform. They require a way to give a seamless experience to their end customers, similar to what the RB, Reserve Bank of India story I told yesterday. That needs an identity platform, right? So these are all horizontal problems. Now, if you take the same bank, there's a vertical set of problems as well. If you're a bank, how do I work with the ISO 222 format that is coming up? How do I do digital banking? How do I do open banking under a specific regulation? For example, if you're in Hong Kong, there might be a Hong Kong regulation for open banking. If you're in UK, there might be a specific regulation, right? And this applies for other industries, right? So there is a vertical angle. And in most cases, this vertical problem is an interoperability problem, right? So if you take the banking industry, if you are doing cross-border payments, you are using Swift. Swift is the prevalent technology, and now Swift is moving to a much more JSON-oriented format, right? So ISO 222, so on and so forth. That is an interoperability problem. How do you take this format and convert to this format? And so WSO2 can play in that space because we are an integration company as well, right? So let me click this again. Yeah, so putting that into a picture, so you have the core technology, you have API management, you have integration, so on and so forth, and then you have the horizontal capabilities. Like, for example, if you take AI, and there's a lot of conversations around AI, there's a horizontal AI, right? Like, for example, we have API management discovery capability with AI, where you can go into the developer portal and say, I'm trying to build a healthcare application. Out of these 200 APIs, which API should I use? And the platform will return that back, right? That's a horizontal AI capability. You then have vertical use cases, right? Like, for example, a reference architecture. I'm going to build out an e-government solution that needs to do a lot of data interoperability. Is there a reference architecture I can use? So those are vertical use cases. On top of that, you basically have what we call accelerators. Now, accelerators are things that we build, but we release it as part of our products, as part of our open source products, so that customers in specific industries can benefit from them. So one example is, if you are in healthcare, one of the global standards in healthcare is FHIR, F-H-I-R, right? Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources. In the US, it's a mandate to use FHIR if you're any healthcare organization. In many parts of the world, most organizations are using FHIR, OHL7, etc. So we thought, as WSO2, because this is our third or second largest customer base, why don't we include support for FHIR and HL7 as part of the platform itself, right? So if you download the integration product, you get this support out of the box, right? So that's a accelerator use case. And then you have the vertical AI capability, which is, I'm in the healthcare space, I'm good with all these horizontal AI capabilities, like the API chat feature, the integration AI features, that's all good. I'm using all of them. But now I also want to see how can I use something very specific to healthcare in this domain, right? So we built AI capabilities on top of our integration product, which plays into the healthcare space or finance space. And we'll go into detail on this. There's a session by Nirmal following this, I think, where we'll go into detail on how we built MCP servers and agents on the healthcare side and the BFSI side, so on and so forth as well, right? But so that's the theme, right? So we have the horizontal capabilities, and we have a bunch of horizontal use cases, vertical use cases, but then we've also built specific things around these industries. And the following sessions after my talk will be going deeper into what we have done in healthcare, what we've done in banking and financial services, and what we've done in government. All right, so moving on. So let's go into some of these areas, right? So if you take a bank, there might be some folk from banking, financial services, insurance, so on and so forth. The easiest thing for us to say is, yes, we have 100+ customers in this industry. Let's collate all those use cases and come up with a reference architecture. And this is one such reference architecture. And this includes, as you can see, there are core banking systems, there are integration components, there are API components. You can use all of our products or other vendor products to put this together. But we also then go into what's the vertical accelerator part, right? So this is one example. So this is the WSO2 integration product. It's very specifically, this is the data mapper view from Ballerina Integrator. And this is a use case where you're converting from the Swift format to an ISO 222 format. So this is, again, if you're in the banking sector, you would understand this, right? But in essence, it's a data mapping problem. So you're saying, here's my source data, here's my destination data. How can I visually map this? And the underlying code will be written. We have also incorporated AI here so that when you say, here's my source data, here's my destination data, because these are well-known formats in the vertical space, right? You already know what the source data should look like. You know what the destination data should look like. If it's in a regulated industry, you know those things. So then you can train these models to understand that and act at a higher efficiency than a normal horizontal AI, right? So in a horizontal AI thing, the sessions you'll be looking at, you can say maybe get like 20, 30% efficiency. In a vertical AI space, you can get a much higher efficiency because you already know these formats. These are standards. These are regulated by various industries. A few more examples. So healthcare, again, high-level reference architecture for healthcare. You have systems of records like Epic and Cerner and Athena and so on and so forth, which are electronic medical record systems, patient record systems. And then you have your API gateway sitting on top of that, and you can do different use cases like patient 360 and different regulatory use cases, so on and so forth, right? So that's a reference architecture using standard products. Within that, again, we have built accelerators. So this is an example of the Ballerina language that I referred to yesterday. And we took some of these healthcare constructs like FHIR, HL7, X12, DICOM, so on and so forth, all these interoperability formats, and natively built it into the language itself. So today, Ballerina is the most powerful language globally to build healthcare applications, right? So because this is part and parcel of the language itself. And there's no other language out there that can support this level of integration and ease, right? So that's another example of an acceleration on top of a WSO2 platform, right? Now, we can't have a talk without talking about AI, right? So, so AI is, of course, everywhere. AI is prevalent everywhere. And we have been looking at, in addition to the AI that the products have, how can you bring a vertical flavor of AI into the various products? Now, this is I don't know whether you can see this clearly. This is an example of a healthcare use case where in natural language, you write your prompt. So the right-hand side of your screen is an English prompt, right? In an English language saying, this is what I want to achieve. Get this data, convert it to this format, batch it together, expose it as this specific API. And then the product will basically take that, convert it into code, write out the code for you, and give you suggestions so that you can start adding the code into your project, right? So it'll suggest where to add these things, so on and so forth. So this is very powerful. So if you are a development team, if you're building certain integrations, AI is not going to replace you, right? But AI is a co-pilot here. It's a peer programmer here, which can help you build the scaffolding, help you build these various aspects, right? So similar to the AI space, sorry, the healthcare space and the BFSI space, you can look at different industries, right? So for example, government. How does government look like? Government mostly deals with how do you work with different departments, different agencies, how do you work with data custodians? Like for example, if you have a birth certificate, does the name belong to one department? Does the social security number or ID belong to another department? Who is the custodian of the address, etc.? So if you make an address change, do you need to go and get it from different departments, right? So it's a data management, data interoperability problem. We are working on a data interoperability platform as well for government, and we are planning to release that as an open source project. And this is very similar to what GovStack is doing and Xroad and so on and so forth is doing in the government space. So you will get into that in future sessions. So our plan is, if you have these accelerators, these building blocks, how can you then use them to accelerate your development, right? So for example, this is just an example of Choreo or Devant or Bijira, any of our SaaS products, right? So when you build something there, it builds a project, right? So the idea is that you can then go to a repository of accelerators on GitHub, etc., or the Ballerina Central, and then say, okay, I want this functionality. I want a capability where I can connect to this healthcare system, and I want to expose it as an API. I don't need to write 100 lines of code for that. I can just pick up from an existing repository, right? So you can pull that in, put it into the project, and you should be ready to go. So there are some customers who have done their whole project overnight because these are pre-built accelerators and pre-built services, right? And then on top of that, you can, of course, bring your own code. You can bring your Java code, your .NET code, bring it into the platform, and start using it, right? So that's where we want to get to. We want to get to a situation where we do vertical abstractions. So on top of the horizontal abstractions that you are going to hear about for the rest of the conference, we want to get to a stage where we can help you with your vertical projects. If you're from specific industries, we might have things that work for those specific industries, right? So that's the gist of the talk. So I've kept it, I think, exactly on time, just bringing it back to the original time. That's the gist of the talk. The more interesting things would be following this, which is the session, I think, just following this is on the digital government blueprint. I think Dev will be talking about what we are doing in the government space, the reference architectures in that space, who we are working with, so on and so forth. And as I mentioned, we are working towards an open source implementation in that space as well. Nirmal will be talking about accelerating digital health with WSO2, so going deep into what we are doing in the healthcare connector space, how we are using AI in that space predominantly, so that's a lesson for other industries as well, and how we've architected that. 3:30, Seshi will be talking about the banking and financial services side, right? So basically talking about, because that's our largest customer base, and we have a lot of lessons from that. Seshi is a great speaker. She'll keep you engaged during that time. Amjad will be then talking about the AI part of all of this. What do we mean when we say vertical AI? Right, so he'll be going into that detail, and then we have an engaging panel following that. So with that, I'll wrap up my session. Do I have one more slide? No, I don't. Okay. Yes, I do. So this is an interesting quote that I like. Someone I was talking to yesterday mentioned the same thing to me, which is, if you're a lazy person, you always look for a shortcut, right? Abstractions are a shortcut. And as software engineers, we always strive to create the right abstraction, the better abstraction, so that we can accelerate our journey, right? With that, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks.